Welcome back to the On Track videocast. And today I have my good pal, Dr. Ken Berry, back again. Dr. Ken Berry was here in, I want to say early January, and talking to us about medical myths that your doctor may have told you. And it has been one of the most watched videos in my entire library of On Track videos. So I have asked Dr. Ken Berry to come back and talk to us today about the fastest growing diet on, at least on Google, I would say, the most Googled diet in North America right now, the Ketogenic Diet. So Dr. Ken Berry has been practicing family medicine in rural Tennessee for over a decade. He's a board certified in family medicine. He is the author of Lies My Doctor Told Me, Medical Myths That Can Harm Your Health. Ken has a passion, as I do, for ancestral diets. And today we are talking all things ketogenic diet. Welcome, Dr. Ken Berry.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me back. After I acted up last time, I thought you'd never have me back again, but here we are.
I got so much response from that. Like all of my members and my followers, I got so much feedback that was like, why can't I have a doctor like that? Man, if I could only find a guy like that. And oh my God, he was so great. So I really appreciated it. I loved the conversation. So for those of you that didn't watch that one yet, I highly suggest going back and watching it. It's all about the book that he wrote. And we go through some of those really common medical myths that your doctors are probably telling you or that you've heard your whole life. And we dispel those myths, don't we?
We sure do. We do.
So the keto diet, Ken, this is
Yes.
like a hot topic right now.
And rightfully so. It should be a hot topic, although some nutritionists and dietitians and doctors would prefer not to talk about it. Word of mouth, grassroots, everybody is watching their neighbor lose substantial amounts of weight. And so the natural question is, dude, what the hell are you doing? How are you losing all this weight? And so then they're like, oh, it's keto. And they're like, what? And then they Google it. And that's why it's one of the number one hits on Google right now. And then they're like off to the races. And then they start their own weight loss journey. It's really a cool thing.
It is such a cool thing. And every single day I'm getting bombarded myself with questions about it. And exactly that, like people are coming in going, okay, my friend, my coworker just lost 40 pounds on this keto diet and she's eating all this amazing food. But there are some questions when people get started. And I know I get a lot of them. So I just, coming from a family physician, a doctor who specializes with these ancestral diets, I just want to go through some of the most common questions asked. First one, of course, has to be cholesterol. I had 3 people today ask me about cholesterol. One lady had gone to her doctor, her bad cholesterol was up, and she only just started keto. And I said, please just keep following. But can you please tell us, everybody freaks about the cholesterol.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I talk about it in the book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, how the cholesterol theory of heart disease even got started. And I'm sure you know this story, Karen, but I'll go through it quickly for the newcomers and this is all true. Because I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory or some kind of foolishness. And you're like, what? That can't be true. But this is totally true, all verifiable. And so there are entire books written about this tragedy, this travesty of modern medicine and medical nutrition and nutrition research. It's really an embarrassing chapter in the book that'll be written about medical nutrition research sometime in the future. And I really think that one day, 20, 30 years from now, in medical school and schools of nutrition, this will be used as a teaching case. This is how you don't do it. Okay. So there's this guy named Ansel Keys. He was a pathologist back in the 50s, and he was a vegetarian, and he loved the vegetarian diet, and he thought that animal products were actually harmful for humans to eat. And so he wanted to do this huge research study to prove that. And so he got a little federal funding, and he was a very boisterous, outspoken guy. Some people say he was a bully. He really kind of got his way. Whatever he wanted, he kind of got that. And so he went to Europe and he investigated all the diets of all these different Mediterranean countries around the Mediterranean Ocean. And so he studied the data from 22 countries, but the study that he published is called the 7-country study. And you may be saying, wait a minute, I thought you said he did research in 22 countries. And that's right, I did say that. And so what he basically did was he cherry picked the 7 countries that showed that his hypothesis was correct. And he ignored the other, 14, 15 countries that showed that his cholesterol theory of heart disease was either background noise or was actually the opposite of true, right? And so he published this study, and he just forced it down the throats of a lot of researchers who said, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. What? And it was basically, you either went along with Keyes or you got ran over by the Keyes train, because he had all these researchers on his side. He had the federal government on his side, and then he quickly got the American Heart Association on his side, because it sounds like it makes sense, Karen. Cholesterol just sounds bad, right? And then when somebody dies of a heart attack and you do an autopsy and you look at their heart arteries, lo and behold, there's cholesterol plaque in their heart arteries. So how could it not be true that high cholesterol increases your risk of heart attack, right? And so all through the decades after that, we kept doing huge research studies trying to really, really verify that, because all the researchers knew that Ansel's data was tenuous, was kind of half-assed, and was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Let's do a big study and let's really definitively prove this once and for all, because there were a lot of scientists who could just poke holes in his study all day long. A lot of the data was made up. Sometimes they would literally survey 20 or 30 people and then apply that to an entire country. And it's like, oh my God, that's terrible. But every time we would do these huge research studies, we would find the opposite. Oh my God, actually in women, the higher their cholesterol, the longer they live, right? And actually in many of the Mediterranean countries, the more fat you eat, the longer you live. All-cause mortality goes down. And so they couldn't publish that study. And so these huge studies would literally get stuck in a basement or stuck in an attic, and they just wouldn't publish them. They wouldn't talk about them. And only now, people like Nina Teicholz, I love her, Dave Feldman, he's another great cholesterol researcher. They're actually discovering these studies, because they would find the researcher and he'd be talking about, oh, I did this study back in 67 or whatever, but it's not published. And they would call him like, dude. And one guy had already passed away, but his son was like, yeah, I think Dad had some old research crap done in the basement. You want to come check it out? And it was a huge, very well done study of tens of thousands of people that proved without a doubt that cholesterol and saturated fat have nothing to do with heart attack and stroke, which is what we're all afraid of, right?
Yes.
And so now this stuff is starting to be published and people are starting to talk about it. And thank God for the internet and YouTube and Facebook, because we don't have to wait 25 years for the American Heart Association to jump on board with this. We can go ahead, just like I'm doing on my YouTube channel, and say, hey, Bubba, fat don't make you fat. You know, hey, sis, you can eat all the cholesterol you want. It won't increase your risk of heart attack. And that's basically what I say on my YouTube channel. And here's the research to back it up. And so it's just a terrible, unfortunate series of events that led the entire U.S. to think that eating cholesterol and saturated fat would increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. And of course, when the U.S. says it, everybody pretty much jumps on board with the other countries. And so now it's known worldwide that cholesterol is bad for you and saturated fat will kill you, even though that's the exact opposite of the truth.
Agreed. You know, and I grew up with the mom that was no fat, like nothing. She called butter Vaseline. Like it was such a forbidden thing in my house. And I swear that's part of the reason why hormonally I was such a disaster, because women don't realize we need good cholesterol to make hormones. So if you've been depriving yourself of this amazing fat your whole life, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah. Now that I've told you about the fallacious research that got this myth going, this lie, now let me tell you the physiological truth in your body so you can understand why just like you just said. So every cell in your body, without exception, has a cell membrane, right, that holds all the cell guts inside the cell. The cell membrane is partially made of cholesterol. Every single cell in your body has to have cholesterol to make the the phospholipid bilayer that is the cell membrane, that the cell can even do what cells do. Without that, it couldn't work, okay? And so then also your brain and your nerves are made of 60-70% cholesterol and fat. So if I were, and people are scared to death of cholesterol. And so I tell people when I do live seminars, if I could reach into your body like the evangelical preacher reaches in and pulls out the evil spirit, if I could reach into your body and pull out all the cholesterol and just boom, come out, right? You would literally die within the hour. Everything would stop working if I removed all of the cholesterol from your body. And most people are just dumbfounded. They're like, but I thought it was poison. It's like, no, your body has to have cholesterol. The average human body makes 3,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day. And so if you eat an egg that has 180 milligrams of cholesterol, do you think that phases your body at all? No, it just makes 180 milligrams less than it would have made anyway, and just uses that cholesterol, and it's just fine. And so when you realize every single cell in your body has to have cholesterol to work, your brain and your nerves have to have cholesterol and fat to even function. For you to even be a human, cholesterol must be in very large quantities in your body. Therefore, and so, right, it's just madness sometimes to have to say this because it's so obvious to me and to you now, but to all the newcomers out there, they're like, wait, my cholesterol went up. Is that bad? My doctor wants to put me on a drug and told me to stop this diet immediately. I hear that every day. And I'm like, no, go watch Nina Teicholz, go watch Dave Feldman, read my book. It's all a myth. None of it's true. And for people who are just regular people who have a job and a spouse and some kids and a dog, they don't have time to be reading books and studies and watching videos. They just need to know the truth. And that's what really triggers me so much when doctors lie to their patients like this. And they're like, oh, this keto diet made your total cholesterol go up. That's a risk factor for heart attack and stroke. Here, take this Lipitor and stop that diet immediately. That is such a lie, such a big, fat lie. And the reason doctors tell that lie is because they're lazy. They're not doing their research. They're not doing their reading. They're not keeping up with the latest updates. And so they have no idea what they're talking about. It's something they were taught 10, 15 years ago, and they're just repeating it parrot-like with no idea of what they're talking about. And it's disappointing that so many doctors still do that. And I apologize every day for my past behavior as a doctor to somebody, and I apologize for other doctors as well. It's embarrassing, it's egregious, and it's quickly becoming to border on malpractice because there's enough stuff out there now that if a doctor's paying attention at all, he should have been asked about the ketogenic diet enough times by now that he's Googling that and figuring out what the hell that's all about. And then that should make him backtrack and actually look at some research. And then he's like, oh crap. Okay. Because that's exactly what happened to me. That's what woke me up is I had somebody asked me, I was getting fat, and I told you the story last time, and I had to do something, and everything I was doing, everything I was teaching my patients was wrong. It wasn't working. Wrong, yeah. I was getting fat. And so I was like, whoa, I got to stop that. And so that's what brought me on my journey to this point now.
And you must, in your practice, when you ask your clients or your patients to try the ketogenic diet or the paleo diet, do you see these markers coming down in their, in their LDL and then the HDL going up? Like what usually happens, and how long does that take to kind of regulate itself for most people?
Yes, the markers that actually matter, because, and let me say this quickly, the reason that doctors used to care about total cholesterol and LDL. The reason some doctors still do care because they don't know better yet. But doctors in the know that total cholesterol has nothing to do with your heart attack risk. That's been proven time and time again. Total cholesterol is meaningless when it comes to your risk of heart attack and stroke. LDL may matter a tiny bit, but barely. And it may not matter at all. There needs to be a little more research done or published, and then we'll know for a fact that it also doesn't matter. It is irrelevant. It is background noise. And so it'd be like saying, oh my God, your kitchen walls are brown, therefore your house is going to burn down tonight. What? No, what? That literally is the same logic. It has nothing to do with it, yet they're trying to say because of this, therefore that. Okay? The numbers that do matter, the numbers that have been shown time and time again to be actually related and causative of heart attack and stroke, are your triglycerides. And keto lowers them every time. Your HDL and is definitely related, and keto raises it every single time. Your hemoglobin A1C, absolutely related to your risk of heart attack and stroke. Keto lowers it every single time, right? Your C-peptide and your fasting insulin levels, intimately related with your risk of heart attack and stroke. Keto lowers them every time. So all the numbers that actually matter, that truly do increase your risk of heart attack and stroke, the ketogenic way of eating moves them in the right direction every single time. Now, some people's total cholesterol and LDL come down on keto. Some people's go up on keto. I don't care either way. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? It's like saying that it made your jacket more brown. I'm like, okay, I don't care. So some people, I had one lady, I was at a live event and she got triggered. She thought I was saying that I personally don't care about her personal total cholesterol. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to be an ass. I'm trying to tell you it doesn't matter at all. I don't care if your total cholesterol is 180 or 280. It is irrelevant to your risk of heart attack. And actually, the research shows that women live longer the higher their total cholesterol is. And we think it's just because cholesterol is a healing and restorative element in the body. That's why it's in the cholesterol plaques in diseased heart arteries. Your body's trying to use it as spackle to fix that inflamed artery. That's why it's there. Right?
I get it. Yes.
Yeah, and so you have you're eating the stupid Canadian diet or the stupid American diet, and you're inflaming your heart arteries, which are causing little cracks and little pittings and little inflammations. And your body's like, crap, that's dangerous. I got to fix that. But the problem is your coronary arteries, your heart arteries are so tiny that even just a little bit of plaque buildup and you're starting to block the lumen or the inner part of where the blood actually flows, right? And so as it builds up, it blocks more and more and more. Then when you have an inflammatory event that causes a plaque rupture, you've blocked the artery, and that's a heart attack. That heart attack was not caused by the cholesterol. The cholesterol was your body's attempt to try to fix the damage that was done by your stupid diet.
We don't ever give our bodies enough credit. It knows what it's doing. You know, that's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Just, majority of people, I don't think know that. I really don't. No, I get it asked every day.
Yeah. And the human body is very ancient. The DNA that we carry is the same exact DNA that our ancestors had 50,000 years ago. And that's why keto works so well, because 50,000 years ago, you ate keto every day. You either ate keto every day or you fasted. And back then, fasting was called starving.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes there was no food for days and you would fast. And then when there was food, it was keto. And then maybe 1 or 2 months of the year, you ate paleo, right? When the fruit was ripe and the berries were ripe. And, you know, like in northern Canada, how many months out of the year is there ripe fruit?
Yeah, maybe 4 months.
Maybe 10 minutes out of the year, right? It's warm enough in northern Canada for that to happen. And so if you lived there, you ate carnivore many months of the year because there was nothing else to eat. And then for a few months you ate keto, and then maybe 1 month or 2 months you ate paleo. But on average, 50,000 years ago, our ancestors all ate keto. And that's why when you say, oh, the keto diet's dangerous, that's just the stupidest thing in the world that any pseudo expert could ever say. That's like saying, well, breathing air will kill you. Drinking water is bad for you, because keto is just as natural and just as ancient as breathing and drinking water. It's the same exact thing. It is the food we have eaten our entire existence on this planet. And to say it's bad for you is just sophomorically ignorant.
Yeah, that's another myth that's often told is, you know, or asked about is how long can you go on keto for? Is it safe to go long term? Is it so in your professional opinion, you would say, do you cycle yourself? Like, do you go for a couple months in the summer where you're eating fruit?
No, I don't do that. I think, and I know there is a subset of people who do that. And I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think that's bad for you at all. What I think is bad for the human body is chronic daily carbs, like we all have been eating our entire life, and chronic super low saturated fat every day of our life, like your mom used to enforce on you, right? So you didn't eat the Vaseline. But I think it's fine if you eat keto 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. If you want to do a cycle for a month or two and eat paleo, that's perfectly ancestral. I don't do that just because I would gain 12 pounds during those 2 months. And so you'll have to remember that's kind of why the fruits ripe in the fall, is so that we can eat as much of it as we can and gain as much weight as we can for the winter that is about to come, right? And so if you want to gain 10, 12 pounds, eat paleo for a couple of months, because that's what our ancestors used to do. That's what grizzly bears still do, right? And so a lot of people don't realize that grizzly bears, before the winter, they get very insulin resistant, and they eat almost nothing but berries and carbs and stuff like that. And they fatten up because they're about to not eat for a few months for the winter. That's what they do. That's literally what it does. Eating all the fruit and berries is it makes them fat. And they do that on purpose so they can go and not eat for 3 months during the winter. And so if you want to do that, hey, be my guest. Let me know how it goes. But I would just as soon pretend I'm living up in, the Nordic countries or northern Canada and just eat keto year round. And for the last 3 months, you may not know this, Karen, I've been eating pretty strict carnivore.
I did recently catch that. Yeah.
And it's really, I really love it. It's effortless for me to eat this way. And I don't think it's for everybody, but if anybody's stuck on keto, if you're really stalled out for 2 or 3 months, I think it's a great thing to try for a month just to see if it installs you. And you may find that your DNA and your gut bacteria really love it.
That's so funny, because the last couple of months I stumbled upon the full carnivore. I'd heard about it, but was like, I was hearing it everywhere, and I was like, okay, time to kind of research this. And I went in even to a couple of the Facebook groups that were all carnivore diets. So this is strictly meat, just for those that are listening, strictly meat and fat, absolutely no vegetables, no fruit, nothing like that. And when you start to read about it, like any diet, there's a lot of testimonials where it really was the thing that worked for them, that got them to finally heal their system. And I have heard, and I wanted just to ask you about this, for people that are insulin resistant, that is a really good way to quickly fix that issue, is to go completely no carb. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the fastest way to cure insulin resistance is to fast. And I think Dr. Jason Fung is absolutely correct about that. There's no quicker way than to fast, just to don't eat. But some of us really like to eat and we miss it. And so then I think the second fastest way to really put a dent in your insulin resistance and your type 2 diabetes is to go fatty meat carnivore for a month or two. And it just it resets your biology. I think it really triggers some genes through epigenetics. And I think it really kind of reformats your gut bacteria, because so many of us are colonized with carb-loving bacteria. And if they don't get their carbs every day, they can secrete chemicals that will literally send you to the kitchen like a carb zombie looking. They can make you hungry, make you have cravings. That's known. And so when you go carnivore, they starve to death because there's zero carbs in carnivore, right? It's all fat and protein, and that's it. You may get 1 gram of carbs a day from the glycogen in the meat if there's any left, but that's it. 1 carb a day max on carnivore. And so those bacteria just move out. They're like, this sucks, I'm gone. And then you kind of get recolonized by this keto loving bacteria. And then if you go back to keto, if you lose weight, and so I've seen so many people, you stall out on any diet, even keto. And so you go carnivore for a month and it'll install you quicker than anything. The only thing's faster than that is fasting.
Yes. But what about for people that, especially fasting, but just in general with the keto diet, I personally worry about the women that have adrenal issues or they've got a thyroid problem.
Yeah. And so that's when we would do our little experiment, our mental game we play. We'd go back in time 50,000 years and say, well, what about the women back then? Did they carb cycle? Did they eat carnivore, or did they just be like, no, I don't want any meat, thank you? No, hell no. They ate that. They ate carnivore, because it was either eat carnivore or starve. That was your choice. And so if they had babies on the breast, they had to eat. They had to eat. And so that's when it's also funny when people say, well, is it safe to do keto when you're pregnant or when you're breastfeeding, or is it safe for kids? And so here's my old saw. Let's go back in time 50,000 years, right? What did the 2-year-olds, after they were weaned from the breast, what did they eat? Same thing everybody else ate. They did not have goldfish and Campbell soup and you know what I'm saying, and Doritos. They didn't have that. They ate keto just like everybody else, and they grew up healthy and strong, and they reproduced. And the way we know that they were healthy and successful at reproduction is that we now currently exist, right? Because if one reproductive pair had failed, you wouldn't be sitting there right now listening to this.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
My argument against that is I highly doubt we would have had a lot of women with hypothyroidism.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I've had several women with hypothyroid and with Hashimoto's do very well on both meat-heavy keto diets and on the carnivore diet. I haven't really had any patients have problems. Have you seen people who have had problems with it, or is this a theoretical concern?
No, this is what I keep running up against and I always say I actually don't know the answer, because I have seen some women where their markers get better, they feel amazing, it's the first time they've been able to lose weight, everything's great, and then I have this other camp where they will not lose a pound. It's like they don't even get into ketosis. Their hair will start falling out. They get really tired. They don't feel well. And they keep trying to lower and lower and lower the carbs. And it's not until I completely stop that, when I see that it's reversing issues. And I do carb cycling. Like if I put in a heavy carb day every couple of days, boom, the weight loss starts happening again. So I don't know if it's a shakeup of because our bodies, they adjust, right? We all keep adjusting to what we're doing. And I always say your body, it does like to get shocked sometimes when we're just talking strictly weight loss.
Right.
It does like variance to get it going again. Just like you said, if I went to a carnivore diet, I'd likely lose weight. But honestly, if I went vegan, I'd probably lose some weight too, because it's different.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's totally true. But I haven't had a lot of people that have needed to carb cycle, but now I do have a subset of patients, and then I also have a wife who has a lot of kind of equatorial DNA. She's half Puerto Rican. She's got a lot of Spanish, a lot of Mediterranean DNA in her heritage, and she does very well on a veggie heavy keto, very veggie heavy, as a matter of fact. Whereas I've got a lot of Nordic blood, and I've got, I think my 23andMe said I had more Neanderthal DNA than 95% of the population. And I think probably a lot of doctors would agree with that. Like, yeah, he's a Neanderthal, all right. All right. And so Neanderthals were exclusively carnivore if they had their choice. And we can go back, and Dr. Michael Eads has a great YouTube lecture. We can tell what people ate 10,000 years ago, 20,000. We can tell. We know. Was it seafood? Was it mainly red meat? Was it mainly veg? We can tell all that stuff.
We can go back farther than that. Like I had CJ Hunt on here, and he was telling me about like how far back they can actually go. And 100% we're keto.
Yeah. And so if somebody has a lot of Scandinavian or Inuit or any kind of northern latitude DNA, and if they have a high Neanderthal DNA percentage, I think they probably are going to do better on a meat-heavy keto or maybe even carnivore. And I think that's why I'm doing so well on it, is because I have that DNA. And then I came to carnivore from keto. So I already had keto-adapted gut bacteria. So there wasn't a lot of And so I've kind of done all this. I started paleo and low carb, high fat, then keto, not carnivore. And I kind of stepwise, every 2 or 3 years, I would tighten it up another notch. So if somebody were to come from the standard Canadian diet and try to do carnivore, that might really be a huge deal for them. They might really feel terrible and have some keto flu and maybe even, have some hair loss and stuff like that. And I think that's why I never really had any trouble, is I did it stepwise every 2 or 3 years. And so, but yeah, I think there is a subset, and it seems to be more women who do better on a veggie heavy ketogenic diet, which would just be a naturally higher carb keto diet.
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting. I think a lot more is going to come out now about the genetic factor, like where we're coming from and how it applies. And I can't wait. I think that's going to be so interesting.
To see the new research come out. But what my current theory is I think that women's hormones are substantially different from men's. And I think that the hormones tweak their gut bacteria and then also cause some genes to turn on in women that aren't turned on in men. And that combination of those two things, the epigenetic differences and the gut bacterial differences caused by their hormones, is what leads to, because I have never heard a single example of a man needing to carb cycle, but I have heard of many women say that they need to carb cycle on the internet. I haven't had a lot of personal experience with, face-to-face people, but I have heard it on the internet a lot, but it's always women. And I think that's probably the two reasons that make that a reality in some women's lives.
Yeah, I'd have to agree completely. Yeah. And like I said, there's always two different camps, it seems like, for me.
Right.
And they either do really well or they just, it's a disaster for them. And they'll keep going because their coworker and everybody else is losing so much weight. I had one year she was on it and she didn't lose a damn pound. And she just kept insisting. And then we get her thyroid results back and her T3 was just like rock bottom. And I'm like, well, there you go. Like, let's heal that up first, get your metabolism going so you can have the metabolic machinery just to burn all this fat like that you're wanting to burn for energy.
Why would you check her free T3? All you need is a TSH.
Oh, you're such an ass.
That's a joke.
Yes, I know. I was like, wait, what? We won't even go down that road because I'm just so angry about that one right now.
So many women are walking the face of this earth right now with severe Hashimoto's or severe hypothyroidism, and they have no idea, and they think it's in their head. They think they're crazy because their doctor checked their thyroid and said everything was fine. And so he checked the TSH and it was normal. And as you know, Karen, you can have a normal TSH with severe Hashimoto's and severe hypothyroidism. You can have almost a life-ending reverse T3 problem and have a normal TSH. And yet, it's like, oh, you're a doctor, huh? Okay, thanks for everything.
Oh, it blows my mind how many women are being misdiagnosed, and they have such a hard time believing. And even it happened to me where I had everything checked apparently, and all they had checked was TSH and T4. I had thought they checked T3, found out that no, they had it, and my T3 was rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I had been having severe migraines for 10 years, almost daily. And as soon as I started to take thyroid medication, they disappeared. So
nothing triggers me quite as much as an idiot doctor trying to act like he's intelligent. That really, really triggers me because women are suffering. Women are dying early deaths. People are losing their mother and their grandmother years before they should have to lose them because of some idiot doctor who is just hard-headed and bound to determine that a TSH is all he's going to check, by God. And it just makes me want to go to their office and put my hands on them is what it makes me want to do. Yeah.
Same.
But
we're changing that.
Yeah, we are. We're trying. And it is catching on. So hopefully people will be able to keep their moms and their grandmothers for many, many more years if people will keep listening to us and sharing this message.
Yes, agreed. Yes, because it has to change. The medical system has to change, which is why I appreciate the book that you wrote so much. I think it's amazing. So let's talk about ketone testing a little bit. Where do you fall on that spectrum? Should we be testing for blood ketones? I've once again seen mixed results on this.
Yeah, I don't recommend anybody check their ketones.
Okay.
When I was really getting into this, I bought a little jar of urine test strips, and Nisha and I played with that for a week or two. And then Nisha said something that I knew but had forgotten. She said, that's one of the very first things we check in labor and delivery. When a woman comes in, we check her urine for ketones to see if she's dehydrated. Nisha's a labor and delivery nurse. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. You're absolutely right. And so then that brings into this whole equation your hydration status. And so if you drank more water today than you did yesterday, your ketones, you won't be as strong. And even in your blood, it won't be as deep a ketosis. It has nothing to do with whether your liver is making ketones or not. all it matters is your hydration status. And so the urine strips are worthless as far as seeing if you're in a deep ketosis or not. And the serum is a little better, but still multiple factors can play on what that reading is, including how much water you've drank today, or if you've been too busy to drink some water. All that matters. And so really they don't really test whether your liver is making ketones or not. That's just one of the many things they test. And so I have pretty much stopped recommending anybody test unless they just want to do it for kicks and giggles. And the more I do this, the more I feel like it helps patients more, to teach them that what we're trying to do is get their insulin level lower. That's what we're really going for. You're going to be in ketosis, and it is a ketogenic diet, and you will pee out ketones, but that's not the goal. That's not the marker. The marker is, what is your insulin doing? What is your waist to height circumference doing? What is your fasting insulin doing? Those are the things that I think, as a doctor anyway, are the medical markers that mean the most to me. I never check somebody's ketones to see how they're doing with their insulin resistance or their type 2 diabetes or any of that stuff. And remember, what we're trying to do here is prevent heart attack and stroke, because those are the leading killers. And to do that, you've got to get all those markers we talked about earlier, you got to get those down. And it seems to me like that people understand that better, because they just get confused when they're trying to measure ketones. And it's like, well, and then I'll see somebody say, well, mine's just 0.3. I don't know why I can't get it better than that. Or, if you're peeing on the ketone sticks, that's just a madhouse of questions. Like, I don't understand yesterday. And it's like, yeah, none of it makes any sense. Just stop doing that. Just eat the diet and make sure your markers are getting better.
Yeah,
agreed. That's what I think about testing. And I'm sure the people that make the strips and the meters and all that disagree with me vehemently, but I'm sorry, but that's just what I see in my practice every day.
I think it'll be one of those things too, actually, that's going to come out soon, that it's how inaccurate it is to measure ketones. The blood, I know that the pee strips for sure, that don't waste your money. But the blood, even the blood keto, I have a lot of women, they have all the symptoms of being in ketosis, and they feel amazing. And then they're just so discouraged because they have, like you said, the 0.3, and they're like, but I'm not in ketosis. I'm like, yeah, but how do you feel?
Right, exactly. And so I've really just stopped talking about it. And I think that the people who sell exogenous ketones, they really want you to test, because it looks as if it proves that their product is working. And I think that's where a lot of the push for testing came from, was people selling all the exogenous ketones. You're like, see, look how purple that sticky is you just peed on. You're in ketosis. But the problem with that is, being in ketosis means your liver is producing ketones. That's what ketosis is. Peeing on a stick and making it purple doesn't mean you're in ketosis. It just means you have ketones in your blood. Whether they're exogenous or endogenous, that's another question altogether.
Yes, I always tell people, like, taking exogenous ketones will raise the ketone levels, but because you've taken a ketone from the outside and put it in, it's not your body producing the ketones. So exactly. That leads me to another question about getting into ketosis. It's not, tell me about how much fat you recommend people to be eating, because there's a lot of controversy about that as well, because people think the more fat you have, the better, but that's not the case, is it?
Well, more and more, I'm really having people focus on eating ultra low carb, and then eating high fat, definitely, because what I recommend for most people is a 80-15-5 to at least to start. We'll start there, and then we can tweak as we go along. But really, the thing that, and I agree with Ted Naiman on this. He's a high protein guy, and he says that it's the low carb, high protein that does it. And I don't agree with everything he says, but I do agree with the low carb. I think that's the essential part of this. You can eat 1,000 grams of fat a day, and if you're eating too many carbs, it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah. And so you've got to be. So I tell my kind of thumbnail advice is eat super high fat, super low carb, and let the protein kind of take care of itself. And that most people just intuitively, when they start this, they can kind of understand that. That makes sense, and that's a good place to get started. I do think eating high fat keeps you full and keeps you satiated. You're not hungry. That makes the diet easy. right? Because you might have a sugar craving, but that's easier to say no to if you're not hungry. But if you're still eating one of, the Weight Watchers or the Ornish or some Jenny Craig crap, not only are you having a craving, but you're also starving to death. And that you're going to fail. That's not sustainable. You can't do that. But a diet where you're never hungry and your insulin level stays very low is very sustainable. It's easy to do, and it's going to work eventually. You may stall off and on, but when your insulin level stays low, you're gonna burn fat. That's just going to happen. That's just how the human body works. And so I don't think there's anything magic in eating extra fat. And so what I tell people, like with keto coffee, put enough butter in there or MCT oil or whatever to curb your appetite. What we're doing is we're hacking our hormones. That's what we're doing. And so you want to have just enough butter so that you hack your leptin and your ghrelin and get them right where you want them to be. So you're full, you're not hungry. And so when some idiot comes around with those donuts, you're like, nah, I don't want one, because you're not even hungry. And then you look up and it's 2 p.m. and you forgot to eat lunch. That's how you know you're in ketosis, not by peeing on a stick. Is that with evidence like that, right? But so, yeah, I think the fat plays a definite role, and you want to be eating lots of fat because fat's good for your body. Every cell membrane needs it. Your brain needs it. Your nerves need it. Your myelin sheath need it around your nerves. But eating just an ignorant amount of fat, there's nothing magic about that. You're exactly right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people think that eating more fat will put them into ketosis, but putting your body into ketosis is the absence of carbohydrates.
That's right.
Or starvation, basically, one or the other.
Yep.
So eat
exactly.
to satiate, which is so key because people are getting so freaked out about their goddamn macros. And I'm like, don't measure macros. Like, that's the most stupid thing, I think, truly, that people can do, because we're so different, and you have to just eat fat to satiate. Like, listen to what your body wants, not this calculator on your goddamn phone, right?
Right. And I almost agree with that 100%. The only caveat would be if somebody was coming from the stupid Canadian or American diet, and a lot of those people have no damn idea what a macro is. They don't even know that there's protein, carbs, and fat. And they have no idea how many grams of those are in any particular food. They like I said, they got a job, they got a spouse, they got a kid, they got a dog. They're busy. They're not going to nutrition school. And so I think it does help those people to maybe download a tracker and a macro counter so that they can learn what foods actually have what in them. But as far as long-term tracking, I think it's completely worthless. I never recommend that. Nisha and I, we never track or count or any of that stuff. We just use fat as a tool. We eat until we're full, and then you're full for hours. That's the beauty of it. And so everybody knows, you go to the Chinese restaurant, right? And you fill up on the rice and the noodles and the egg rolls and all that, and then the red sauce that's like sugar coma, and you're so stuffed, right? You can't move. But 2 hours later, you're hungry again.
You're starving.
That's carbs. That is the definition of carbs. They don't satiate you. You don't stay full. But like I just went to dinner with the family, and I had a full rack of ribs, okay, with dry rub, no sauce, and then I also had hamburger steak. That's what I had for my dinner, and so that's full of fat and protein. Now, carbs are not satiating at all. Protein is pretty satiating, right? But in my opinion, and in most experts' opinion, fat is the most satiating of all. Now, Ted Naiman and a couple of other doctors will disagree with that. They say that protein is more satiating, but I don't know where they get that. I've never experienced that in my life. I've eaten lots of protein before, and I'm not satiated. But trust me, I will not be hungry until tomorrow afternoon sometime. Who knows when? Because of all the fat I just ate, right? And so my insulin level, as soon as the protein's digested, is going to stay low normal for 17, 18, 19, 20 hours, right? And that's the definition of a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
That's how you lose weight. That's how you burn the fat that's on your belly and on your booty.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I know, because if I eat, like say, a chicken breast, with
Right.
whatever, a salad, I am starving within the hour. If I eat
Yeah.
a big fatty prime rib steak with my salad, I'm
Yes.
good till the next day. No problem
Exactly.
at all.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
just the fat.
Right. And what is it with women and damn chicken breast? What is
Oh,
with y'all? Like, I have so many women are like, oh, I'm eating a good ketogenic diet. Every day for lunch, I have a salad, which is iceberg lettuce, with chicken breast on it and some bacon bits. And they're like, that's my keto lunch. And I'm like, I just want to
no.
slap you right now. What the hell? Boneless, skinless chicken breast is not keto.
Keto.
Okay, stop that.
It's really hard to get it through their heads. I
It
was telling you
is.
before we started, I have this group of 700 women going through this intro to keto program. And I got that so much, which was, the chicken breast. And I'm like, no. Eat the
Yeah.
fattier cuts of meat. Don't be
Yes.
afraid of that anymore. Leave the
Yeah.
chicken skin
Yeah.
on.
And every time I say that, I get this look like, eat the
Yeah.
skin?
Yeah.
Yes, damn it. Eat the skin. And so another thing that really just, it's like unbelievable. People will take the skin off their chicken. They won't eat the gristle. They won't eat the skin. They won't eat the tendon. They won't eat the cartilage, but then they'll buy a collagen supplement. And it's like, what do you think the skin and the gristle and the tendon are all made of? That is the most bioavailable collagen on the face of the planet. But you're going to go buy some powder that was made in a factory.
Yeah.
Come on, people. We're just cave men and women who stood up and put clothes on. Gnaw the bone, eat the skin, eat the cartilage, eat the sinew, eat the gristle. If you eat a ribeye and you push that gristle to the side, you're not. We can't be friends. You got to eat the gristle. Okay, that is pure collagen. That's what your knees are going to use to make new cartilage. Okay, that's one of the reasons that keto helps with joint inflammation so much, is it's very uninflammatory, and you're getting all this extra collagen that you didn't used to eat. Because I don't even know if there's collagen in skinless chicken breast. I don't know. I don't know.
It's the
Not
worst
much.
cut of meat. I have to completely agree with that. Like, at least go with the
Yeah.
chicken thigh. I'll do chicken thighs all
Yeah.
the time with the skin, but no, a
If you
chicken
went back in time,
breast.
if you did my story and went back in time 50,000 years and offered a skinless chicken breast to your great grandmother to the 50th power, she'd probably stab you with a flint knife. Like, she would think you hated her if that's what you gave her to eat. You must hate me. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So in your practice, do you recommend everybody to go keto? Like, if you're talking about diet with people, is that your
Yeah.
go-to? Is right
And
off the
not
bat?
and more my practice is becoming a travel to, and then let's talk about keto, and which is fine with me. I love it. But I do have some, patients I've had for over a decade who could care less about diet, and they don't want to talk about it, and that's fine. I'm not going to push it on them. But if anybody asks me about diet, it's some variant, it's some ancestral diet that I recommend to them, depending on their age, their gender, their medical conditions, what medications they take, because all those things play a part. But it's some variant of the ancestral eating plan. That's what I recommend to every human, because that is the diet that humans should eat. There is no human on the planet that should eat lots of whole grain. There is no human like that. There is no DNA inside of a human body that craves lots of servings of whole grain every day and lots of skim milk and lots of margarine. There is no human that should eat that. So everybody, if they ask me about diet, I tell them about some ancestral diet, because that's what they should eat.
For autoimmune patients, what are you
Oh
suggesting? Do
yeah.
you still think
Yeah.
keto?
Oh yeah. And I've had
Yeah,
so
same.
many women who have autoimmune psoriasis, who have lupus, who have MS, all these women who have these autoimmune and, Hashimoto's, they all get better on keto. Whether it's a meat heavy keto or whether it's a veggie heavy keto, their inflammation gets better, because any autoimmune condition is, at least in part, a stupid immune system that's attacking the human instead of what it perceives part of her as disease, and so it's attacking it. And a lot of doctors describe that as an overactive, or your immune system's too strong, which is stupid, because that's the complete wrong paradigm to be giving these women to think about it. And I had one woman who asked me about the ketogenic diet. She's like, well, isn't that going to make my immune system stronger? I don't want that, do I? And so I had to explain to her, the reason you have Hashimoto's is not because your immune system is too strong. It's because it's stupid. It's attacking you when it shouldn't be, right? It's stupid, right? And so when you eat keto, it's like your immune system calms down and goes, wait a minute, this is actually part of me. I shouldn't be attacking that, or at least it's going to help it not attack it so aggressively. And so every woman or any man for that matter, with an autoimmune condition, it gets better. They have fewer flare-ups, and the flare-ups they do have are less severe. I see it all the time, all the time, all the time. From eczema to psoriasis to lupus to MS, all of them get better with the ketogenic diet.
Yeah, it's just so good for healing the gut system too, which is so key for people with autoimmune conditions. Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen it work really, really well myself in my own practice for people with autoimmune conditions. I think you should still you have to kind of figure out which of the vegetables and stuff you might be reacting to if you are doing the vegetable.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I haven't tried carnivore for autoimmune, but that would be interesting because you are really removing all of those inflammatory
everything. That's right. Everything.
Then.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You don't have to worry about nightshades if you're eating carnivore.
No. Yeah. Very interesting, Ken. I love it. I could sit here and talk to you forever, but it's, while we're recording this, it is a Friday night. So
it is.
I think I should probably let you go. Where can people find you? I know you have a great Facebook channel, like a Facebook channel, YouTube channel.
Yep.
Is that the main places people need to go?
I try to do most of my work on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram because I feel like I can help the most people with the least effort on those three social medias. And so if you just search for Dr. Ken Berry on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, I pop up pretty close to the top. And then I try to make at least 2, if not 3 new YouTube videos every week. And they might be about intermittent fasting. They might be about something keto. They might be about something stupid that doctors are doing. It might be about medications that stall your weight loss. It might be about a list of medications that lower your testosterone. You never know, but they're always something, I hope, that's pretty useful to a lot of people to improve their health. And so, and then there's the book on Amazon. Oh, and let me tell you this.
Yes.
Carl Franklin of the Two Keto Dudes podcast.
Yeah.
He's reading Lies My Doctor Told Me. There's going to be an Audible, and it's going to be Carl Franklin's voice, that smooth, baritone, just gravy voice of his is going to be the voice of Lies My Doctor Told Me. So I'm really stoked and excited about that. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. I can't wait to hear it.
And I highly suggest reading the book. It's one of those books that should just be given to everybody, I think, as they come of age. It's like, here, read this before you head out into the real world, including especially doctors.
Yeah. And actually, there's a chapter, the last chapter is written to doctors. And so if you have a doctor who's telling you these silly lies about keto and cholesterol and take your Lipitor, get him a copy of my book and tell him to read the last chapter and then shut up.
Yeah. And then just shut up.
Just shut up.
All right. Well, we'll have you on again because you're just
please.
So enjoyable to talk to. I could just sit here and pick your brain forever. And I know my audience loves you like everybody does. And everybody go check him out on his YouTube channel. I will put all the links in the show notes, including the one to his book on Amazon. So go check it out. But thank you so much for being here, Ken.
Karen, it's such a pleasure. I love talking to you. Let's do this again soon.